What's happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel. For today's video, thanks to the team over at Threezero, we're going to be taking a look at their DLX Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Megatron. Now, as we check this guy out, he looks so wickedly awesome. I mean, like all of their figures, it's like they've taken that CGI design and brought it into real life, because this guy looks crazy. And to be fair, I think alongside his Transformers 3 look, this may just be one of the best looking versions of Megatron based on some of those Michael Bay movies. I mean, to me at least, the design has always looked so ruthless. I mean, I don't think there's any part of this guy which wouldn't kill you. For example, the entire head is completely serrated, as so is the shoulder, and I didn't realise how serrated the entire chest and spinal column is. I mean, this guy is nuts. Now, to kind of give you a slight bit of backstory in regard to this version of Megatron, Megatron had been killed off. He was then buried at the bottom of the Laurentian abyss and was pretty much rusting in peace until the Decepticons brought him back with a mixture of the Allspark as well as the remains of dead Decepticons, which is why he does come across to be slightly more dilapidated this time round, and he also has a bit of asymmetry packed into the design, but that just makes him all the more unique. I mean, look at this shoulder pad with the Cybertronian hieroglyphs. I've always loved this one with that kind of huge jagged spike, but as you guys can see, I mean, the arms in themselves just look crazy, and personally, I love the hand sculpt of this one. I mean, you can see these tiny little serrated blades packed into the fingertips of Megatron. This guy was essentially a triple changer, so not only could he transform into a jet, but also into a tank, which is why we have these massive treads at the base of his leg. And I mean, look at the detail that's going on here. We get some shocks, we get some pistons, the painting and the detail on these looks fantastic, and look at those enormous knee pads, which I believe he uses to destroy Prime's mouth guard in the forest battle. And as we spin this guy around here to the back, as I said, because he's a triple changer, he also has these massive thrusters, and these things are actually enormous. They're way bigger than I was expecting. Again, we get some additional Cybertronian hieroglyphs, and check out how serrated that spinal column is. I mean, this guy literally looks like he would cut you. He is so crazy looking, and I never even noticed that he had tiny little thrusters on the original design back in 2009. So yeah, that's great. We get some additional ones here packed into the back of the legs, just all the way throughout this guy. I mean, look at the various different cogs that we've got here on the inside. He literally looks nuts, and this is one of those Threezero figures where I got him out of the packaging and I actually had no idea whatsoever how he was going to articulate, because the engineering in itself is crazy, especially in terms of how his legs articulate. Which, talking of, do you guys remember when he actually used these treads to kind of grate the torso of Starscream just after the forest fight? I mean, this guy was so nasty to Starscream, and to be fair, pretty much nasty to everyone who wasn't the Fallen. He was just so cool. Even in death, there is no command but mine. Just so awesome, man. Look at the serrated teeth that are embedded within this guy's mouth. I mean, he looks great. But anyway, in terms of articulation, both the head and the neck are on ball joints, so he can look back that far, he can look down, tilt side to side, as well as rotate the full 360. Despite both of the arms being asymmetrical, they work in exactly the same way. So first of all, I'd recommend to take the shoulder pad, hinge this here out to the side, which allows for a full 360 rotation here at the shoulder. Surprisingly, despite his design, we still retain a butterfly joint, so this can go forwards and backwards, and check this out, even up and down, so that's fantastic. We can also hinge the shoulder out to the side, bearing in mind all of these joints could probably go slightly further, but I don't want to run the risk of damaging the paint or the plastic. We also get a very nice buttery bicep rotation, and also kind of the pads that we have on the back of the elbows are articulated too, so you can move these here forwards and backwards, which is sick. We get a great double joint packed into his elbow, which allows for way past 90, so that's terrific, as well as a ball joint here at the wrist. The fingers are not individually articulated, but to be fair, considering how spindly they are, I imagine they'd be prone to breaking if they were, and they also include a few accessories to kind of work around that anyway, so yeah, that's not a problem. But as we get stuck into this guy's torso articulation, the bread and butter of Threezero's engineering. So first of all, you can rotate both the waist and the upper part of the torso left to right, which is fantastic. It can also rock side to side, which is awesome. But check this out, guys. It is articulated at 3 individual segments, which not only allows for a terrific ab crunch. I mean, look at that. That is fantastic. But as we spin this guy around here to the back, check out the individual segmented overlapping panels to create his spinal column. I mean, that is sick. Look at the painting and the sculpting. And as we bring this here back over, watch how the panels kind of seamlessly overlap on top of each other. It is just so crazy. So yeah, that's fantastic. And then as we move down to the the lower half of Megatron, I'd recommend to take this panel first of all and just kind of hinge it here to the back. And then what you're going to want to do is take this top knee pad and slide it down. If you don't, you do run the risk of kind of damaging the paint and the sculpt. So once you've done that, it does allow for roughly 90 forwards, which I think is pretty fantastic. It can kick back slightly, but not as far as personally I'd like. Considering how complex the design is, I imagine this would have been impossible. And to be fair, it's not really a big deal. We also do get a pretty decent kick going out to the sides. Could probably go slightly further, but I don't want to run the risk again of damaging the paint or the sculpt. We do get a very nice thigh rotation, and I actually really like the engineering that's going on here for the knees. So much like the hips, you're going to want to first of all make sure that you take this panel and basically shift it here to the back. It is on a double hinge joint, so pull that backwards, and technically if you weren't to use any of the extending joints, you'd get roughly about that far out of this joint. And I mean, check out that is just so fantastic, the way the tread actually rotates along with the knee joint. I mean, I don't actually even know how that works, so from an engineering perspective, that is wicked. But you can actually take this slightly further, so there is kind of a slider joint here which you can slide forwards and backwards. Once you extend that, it does allow for a little past 90, so yeah, that's great. And then finally, in terms of the ankles, you can extend these here forwards, completely reinforced by die cast. So yes, this guy also does have a die cast endoskeleton like all of their DLX releases, which is fantastic, but this can go forwards, backwards, as well as rock left to right, which is fantastic, and it can also rotate the full 360. So in terms of articulation, absolutely incredible, especially considering how complex the design is, and in terms of painting and sculpting, I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. This is the Revenge of the Fallen Megatron. In reality, this guy looks crazy. Now, before we jump into this guy's accessories, Megatron does take two AG13 batteries, which are packed inside his head sculpt. So, in order to activate the LEDs, all you have to do is push this little crest, and bang! Megatron is resurrected and ready to take on the Autobots. I mean, that looks fantastic. The piercing red, again, is just so accurate to what we saw in the movie. And to be fair, I don't even think the lighting in my review station is doing this guy justice, because he looks way more realistic, even more realistic in hand than how he's coming across in camera. It's actually kind of surreal. I mean, this thing is basically the CGI render of 2009 Megatron. Now, as we check out Megatron's accessories, as I mentioned previously, he does not have articulated fingers, so they've given us a pair of open hand sculpts, which I think look great. So to match his robot mode design, these are asymmetrical. This one here has slightly less fingers when in comparison here to this one, which looks crazy. I mean, look at the tiny little pincers that we have on the end of some of these fingers, and we actually see him use this in the movie to kind of pin down Sam Witwicky so that scalpel robot can kind of rip open his brain and get the Cybertronian hieroglyphs out, which lead them to the Sun Harvester or to the Matrix. It's been a very long time since I checked out Revenge of the Fallen, but yeah, these are fantastic. But what would Megatron be without his classic fusion cannon? And this is so great looking. I mean, we get this sick serrated sword, which he uses in order to kill Optimus Prime off with during the forest fight. And in terms of the fusion cannon itself, much like the robot, the detail and the sculpting is just crazy. I do wish in some ways this, much like the head, had come with some LEDs, and to be fair, I don't think that also would have gone amiss had they found the way to have included two of those in the back thrusters, but still wickedly detailed. It also would have been nice had we been given the option to swap this blade out with a slightly smaller one, because I think it's only during the forest fight that we see this here fully extended. In any of the other shots, especially towards the final battle, it's always just kind of collapsed down and not in use. So yeah, that would have been cool, but very easy to slide this on. You know, you basically pull off the pre-existing hand and slide this on, and Megatron is ready and raring to go. Now, as we check out a few comparisons, here we have Megatron alongside their DLX Revenge of the Fallen Optimus Prime. These look fantastic. Because they've given us this Megatron, I would love to see them approach maybe a Revenge of the Fallen Starscream, and in particular, you know, if they were to give us a DLX version of Devastator, that would be crazy. But I also wouldn't mind seeing Grindor / Blackout, because I think that is one of my favourite Decepticon designs from those first three Michael Bay movies. Here's Optimus Prime based on Transformers The Last Night, DLX Transformers 5 Bumblebee, the Hasbro and Takara Tomy movie masterpiece 2007 Megatron, and these are pretty much identical in terms of height. So if you wanted to use this Threezero Megatron as part of your MPM collection, then to be fair, I think it's going to look pretty banging. Studio Series Voyager Class Revenge of the Fallen Megatron, and then finally the Studio Series Leader Class The Fallen, who again, I wouldn't mind seeing get the Threezero DLX treatment. And so, wrapping up on this review for the Threezero Transformers Revenge of the Fallen Megatron. This guy is absolutely fantastic. I mean, there really aren't any complaints to be had with this guy. Like all of their figures, it's like they've taken that CGI design and just brought it into reality. I mean, the painting and the sculpting on this guy is impeccable. It looks exactly how he appeared in the movie. I even noticed some details which I never even saw in the film, such as those tiny little back thrusters that this guy has. He just looks wicked, and I think the engineering in particular for this Megatron is what surprised me, because as I said, when I got him out of the packaging, I actually had no clue at all in how to articulate the arms and in particular the legs. I mean, the treads, you can't see any visible joints despite him being as articulated and as posable as some of their past entries. So yeah, this guy looks fantastic. His accessories are awesome. It would have been nice to have had a retractable arm blade in the fusion cannon as well as an LED in both the cannon and the back thrusters, but for the most part, this guy is literally a 10 out of 10 and is definitely one of their best Decepticons which they've brought out so far. I'd love to get your thoughts on this Megatron down in the comment section below. What do you guys think? And until my next video, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.